Yeah, so we're going to be speaking to a guest, Miss Ros Scott, who's online with us. So hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Drive Time Show.
Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us. You're a freelance journalist, Ros Scott.
I am indeed. I am a freelance journalist, and I was invited to the Peace Symposium in March after I did a Drive Time interview last December.
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
And then from that to the Jalsa Salana. So I've been making more and more Ahmadi Muslim friends.
That's great.
That's excellent.
Both in real life and on Twitter, actually.
So when you went through the Peace Symposium, what was your impression of His Holiness?
Well, I was part of a press conference with him, which was really illuminating at the beginning, and people were asking him about all sorts of things, his motivation, young people, terrorism, all sorts of things came up. And he kind of unpacked some of the ideas that he then went on to address during his keynote speech.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gave me a real insight. I wrote a blog at the time. And I think it was, hang on, I've lost it, doesn't matter. I wrote a blog at the time about what the Caliph was saying.
Okay.
And I was impressed. The hospitality was amazing, the food was amazing. There were 600 non-Ahmadi guests at the Peace Symposium, so the Ahmadi Muslims were actually in a minority on that occasion. And I just thought, it was fantastic. One of the things that really impressed me was the Peace Prize, which I think started in 2009, and it was at the last March. It was given to Miss Setsuko Thurlow, who got it because of her lifelong campaign for nuclear disarmament, which really impressed me, because in the past I've done quite a lot of research into the arms trade, so I was really interested that the Caliph thought that was a priority.
Is it, you went to these events, you went to the Jalsa, you went to the Peace Symposium. Was it something you expected, the program, the way it was conducted, of His Holiness, his speech, so on and so forth?
I thought it was really professional. I mean, I'm a Christian by faith, and people don't always give religious groups a lot of credit. But, there was the press conference in advance, the opportunity to to talk to the Caliph about, what his concerns were, and, what his motivation was. He was very, I go on to that in a second, what he was actually saying. I thought his message was critical. But, it was excellent. The food was excellent. The hospitality was amazing, both at the Peace Symposium and at the Jalsa. I was looked after by different people, but they were excellent. And the other thing, the Caliph talked about integration, and one of the things that came across really strongly was how integrated all these people I met were into, London communities. You're not in a ghetto, from what I could see. You're all out and about working, and the humour at the Jalsa, actually, I had a really funny interlude at the Jalsa with a man who was introduced to me as the Ahmadi Muslim's very own love professor, and that did make me laugh. And you don't always expect that when you think about Muslim communities.
So for the benefit of our listeners, or can you explain what was meant by the love professor? I think my phone's going berserk with Twitter. Yes.
I think what happened, I'm just going to move it. I think what happened is that I questioned this.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to appear irreverent. And it was two old friends meeting up. I was talking to the mayor, a deputy mayor, and he had had a reunion with the love professor, and I just happened to be there. And I spoke to the head of the press for the Ahmadiyya community, and he said that it is true that actually in South Asian communities you marry a family, and sometimes people would welcome an introduction. We're not talking any forced arrangement, I don't think. But this man was considered to have enough insight judgment and experience to be able to match people up. I kind of got off the phone and thought, I wish they had that in the Christian church that I'm part of, because it's an individual. You marry an individual, and it's all me.
Exactly.
So It was just very different, and I did check it, and they said, they were very happy for me to go to press and say that I've met a love professor. And that's a secular way of explaining, the opportunity to be introduced to families that you might not come across in a mosque, the size of the one in Morden.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the purposes of the Jalsa and the annual convention is that people from all over the country, all over the world, come together. They eat, pray, and get educated together, and they feel that spirituality, and they increase in their spirituality. But another reason is that they bond with each other. The brotherhood and all that. So this is a vital part of the Jalsa Salan. And as you mentioned very rightly, that it's sometimes. This is also a positive outcome that when families meet each other, then
the impression I got was it's not just men and women. I mean, if anything, it's more men and women and women.
Of course.
Friendships, because they're easier. But what I felt was that people came. I mean, there was 38,000 Ahmadi Muslims at the Jalsa, and they came from all over the world. So there was people meeting at the Jalsa from far-flung countries of the world that they would never meet anywhere else. They'd never meet Londoners, or Londoners would never meet a Somalian or whatever, except at the Jalsa. And then they would meet again the year after. And I just thought that was lovely, because I actually grew up in Brunei and went to international school there with 33 different nationalities of people. And for me, multiculturalism is what makes Britain great.
Exactly.
So it was just lovely to be part of that.
How important do you think are faith leaders in a community?
I think they're very important. I mean, I think they're absolutely essential. Can I talk a bit about what the Caliph said?
Sure,
absolutely. Explaining why they're important, because I think the first thing that I noticed when the Caliph was making his keynote address was that because it was written for kind of non-Ahmadis, so, I don't always follow all the theology, but at the Peace Symposium, he was outward looking and he was condemning the arms trade and the vested interests of politicians. And he said that the arms trade was a very clear example of how business interests and wealth take priority over peace. And he said that the arms trade fuels warfare and has trapped the world in a perpetual cycle of violence, which I thought was, it's an amazing message. That is an amazing message. And he talked both at the press conference before the Peace Symposium and at the Jalsa about terrorism. Obviously, we'd had some terrorist attacks by that time, and we've had more since. So he talked to somebody else, a man called Fatih Din, who looked after me at the Peace Symposium, explained to me that the Caliph said that love of your country is part of your faith.
Part of your faith, yeah.
So, and he said that integration was about being an asset to your country. It was not about the hijab or about alcohol or about changing anything else about the culture, which is different, distinct, but need not be in conflict. But then Fatih Din said, the jihad is misinterpreted by mullahs and extremists. The jihad is a fight within yourself. It's a fight to be good human beings. Give up your time to do something good. Not everyone is prepared to do that. And I think that message, people often turn to religious leaders and anyone associated with a religious organization for a negative statement. And actually, there's this idea about being servants of humanity. Servants is a very strong word. You're there to serve the country that you live in. And I think that message, that's what makes the Caliph stand out to me.
Yeah.
He said that Islam is the guarantee of security in the world. And he'll actually, at the Jalsa, his message was interesting. He said, without exception, without any discrimination, all of the people are equal. It's when people think they are superior that they disturb the peace. And he told us there's no superiority as a human being. A white person is not superior to a black person. This is interesting in light of your earlier program. Nor is a black person superior to a white.
Yeah.
And he said it's when people think they're superior that they disturb the peace of the world. Lawlessness comes from a feeling of inferiority. Terrorists may take God's name in vain, and they're not the only ones to do so, but they act in their own strength cut off from God. And obviously your motto is love for all and hatred for none, which kind of in a very pithy way sums up what the Caliph, is explaining to to every dignitary that he meets, to every young person who's lacking purpose, to every Ahmadi Muslim, to every Christian, to everyone that he comes into contact with. I think the message is compelling. It's a message of peace and love, and it's just not what we hear. When we turn the radio on and people are talking about Muslims.
Yeah, I mean it's a fantastic message to hear, not only for our community but for the whole world, and I think you also mentioned that very clearly. Thank you very much, Rose, for talking to us and for being on the Drive Time Show and talking to us about this.
Hopefully we'll have you next to Jalsa Salana as well, interview there as well.
Yeah.
Super. Okay, all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.